So, the title of this video is self-explanatory. Um, I'm only going to focus on the 2019 draft, which is the Zion Williamson draft, and I'm only going to focus on the first round because although we got Diddy and Melly, they're kind of irrelevant to this in the grand scheme of things. Um, I'm also not going to spend a good majority of the time talking about Zion because, for the most part, he's irrelevant. You couldn't fuck that up even if you tried. So, with all that being said, let's start this masterpiece. See, Griff had a couple options in this draft, and he did some things pretty well, but for the most part, he fucked this up. And I'm going to tell you why. If you guys followed me on Twitter, I said I had this video coming. And I kind of want to explain my thought process. Let me give you the end result first before I get into the nitty gritty. So ultimately, what this team should have looked like in 2019 to 2020 season, it should have been Lakers trio, Zion, probably still signed Derek Favors, right? But you have several sets of options here. But there's several players at play. I know most people like to talk about Bol, but there's also other guys on that list. Tyler Hero. Often we talk about DeAndre Hunter, who's very important right now. Rui Hachimura, PJ Washington, Maurice Tabo, Tyler Hero. I'm not sure if I mentioned him. If I didn't, Tyler Hero. And there's some other guys, Langford and a couple others, right? Campaign, who, if I'm not mistaken, he plays for Memphis, and they're in the playoffs right now. He's hooping. No, if he don't play for them, I think he plays for Phoenix. Regardless, you also got Kevin Porter Jr., who was the 30th pick in the draft, and I think he was taken by Milwaukee. I could be wrong. But here's the thing. Pelicans had the number 1 and number 4 picks because of the trade that sent AD to the Lakers. So obviously we're not going to talk about Zion. But what we're going to talk about is that number 4 pick. Now, they opted to trade down by taking Atlanta's number 8 and number 17. Here's the thing. If they keep the number 4 pick, they keep DeAndre Hunter. Okay? Now, they could trade the pick and, for the most part, keep the same, formation as far as the picks is concerned. Or they could have flipped Drew Holiday and got both of Atlanta's picks, the 8th, it could have got all 3 probably if they wanted, the 8th, the 10th, and the 17th. Obviously, if they get all 3, there's more guys to pick from. And I just listed a bunch of guys they could have took, along with like Cam Reddish, who Atlanta ultimately took along with DeAndre Hunter. Um, However, let's assume I just laid out those are the options. Let's assume that they decide to continue with the route. They give up access to DeAndre Hunter, right? Well, before we go there, the reason I outlined the three picks that they could have had is because you could have basically had DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish if you wanted, Tyler Hero, or PJ Washington, or Rui Hachimura probably, or you had options. You know, you essentially had an option to get Tyler Hero, Cam Reddish, and DeAndre Hunter if you had played your cards right. You could have got all three, or Kevin Porter Jr. if you like him, if you're high on him. Very important. When you think about the Pelicans team last year with Alvin Gentry, also think about the Pelicans team this year with Stan Van Gundy. Obviously, well, I ain't got it to that part. I'll get into that in a second. So, you trade, you get the 8th and the 17th, right? There's a couple guys already off the board, like DeAndre Hunter. Not going to get into that. But you took Jackson Hayes. Now, Jackson Hayes was always going to be a project. And you weren't going to see the total value of him until years to come. Right around mid to third, fourth year-ish was when you're going to start to see, okay, what he is or what he could be. However, if you wanted to get a more immediate impact, all those guys I mentioned for the most part, Rui, Cam Payne, Cam Reddish, Tyler Hero, Bo, PJ Washington, Maurice, Tabu, all those guys were still on the board. You could have got any of those guys at number 8. But, fair enough, you don't get them. You go down to pick number 13. That's Miami's. That's where they took Tyler Hero. He was still on the board. Now, keep in mind, Alvin Gentry first year, right? If you wanted to get the Miami pick, you could have traded from Drew Holiday and got that pick straight up. And they would have took Drew Holiday because they had just got Jimmy Butler. Jimmy, they would have took that. Okay? With Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, they would have took that. So, just follow me here, right? You go down to pick number 17. A lot of these guys are off the board now. But you still got guys like, what's his name? Romeo Langford. I think Okoro for Detroit. Kevin Porter Jr. Bobo, obviously. You know what I'm saying? But you took Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Think about this for a minute. I listed a lot of guys that were ahead of him. There's some guys you could have took, because if you're going to trade Drew for the 13, you got Tyler Hero, you really don't need Nall at that point. Or if you get Cam Reddish, you don't need Nall. There's a lot of other guys that could have been on that board. Now, I'm not saying Jackson Hayes might not have been on that board, but they might have could have got Jackson Hayes right then at number 17. They probably could have got him at number 17. If they'd have got him at number 17, you basically end up forfeiting Nickeil Alexander-Walker to get Cam Reddish, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Drew Holiday, to get Cam Reddish, Tyler Hero, or Rui Hachimura, or Kevin Porter Jr., or Bobo, any of those 4 guys. You get 2 of them. You get 2 of them. Period. Okay? Keep in mind, you already got Zoe, B.I., Zion, and Derek Favors. If you decide that you want to get rid of Drew, you can pretty much get any of those picks that you want. Hypothetically, you could have probably traded to Atlanta and got all of the Atlanta picks, which means you essentially had 4 picks. No, 5 picks in the first round. 1, 4, 8, 10, and 17. Yeah. 1, 4, 8, 10, and 17. Those are the picks. Okay? Those are all the picks you would have had. Okay? Think about this. You might forfeit Drew, be like, well, we're going to lose Drew. But we lost Drew this summer for Bled, Adams, and 3 firsts. That was what we got back, essentially. You could have got rid of Drew and had DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, Rui Hachimura, possibly, Tyler Hero, Jackson Hayes. I'm just throwing guys out there. Bobo. Just throwing guys out here, right? So let's just go ahead and fast forward to the season. You know what I'm saying? Zion gets hurt. Whatever. So let's just say you kept DeAndre Hunter. You don't have Drew, so you probably got Cam or Tyler Hero. Next to Lonzo, right? And keep in mind, this is what the bench was looking like for the Pelicans. They still had Kenrich, Frank Jackson, Etuan Moore, Solomon Hill, Jahlil Okafor, right? You could afford to let some of those guys go, especially if you drafted like several of these dudes. Like, you already got Derek Favors. You could have took Bobo, train him up at center. Redshirt him if you need to. Could have still probably got Jackson Hayes, to be honest. Fair enough. Could have got Rui Hachimura. You could start him if you decide, whatever. You could start him. DeAndre Hunter possibly a power forward while Zion is out. I'm just saying, these are guys you have in places. You had B.I. playing power forward. B.I. could have played his actual position, small forward, that year. But even if you didn't want to, let's say if you was like, we could just go ahead and put B.I. power forward. Okay, fine. You got Cam Reddish, Tyler Hero, Kevin Porter Jr. I mean, all these guys that you had access to, because you would have had 4 or 5 picks somewhere in the, you would have had enough to get most of these dudes off the board. Your starting lineup is going to look something like Lonzo, Tyler, B.I., DeAndre, Derek Favors. I'm sorry, what? Are you kidding me? That's what, but wait a minute. Check this out. That's just the starters. The bench could have been something like, because you still got Josh Hart on the bench. You know what I'm saying? So your bench could have looked something like, let's just say you needed to get a point guard because you didn't have one. You could have got Maurice Thybulle, point guard off the bench. If you ended up getting Cam Reddish could have came off the bench, or you could have started Cam Reddish and put Tyler Hero off the bench. That's your 2 guard. Or do it like this: Cam at the 3, Josh Hart at the 2. Now Josh Hart is playing his actual position. Wow. Kevin Porter, it's your power forward. Well, I'm not sure. Let me not put Kevin Porter there. But you had options. You had several options. You had several different options there. If you wanted to play B.I. at that spot, you could, bring him in, sub, like he's one of the first ones out, and sub him back in with the rest of the bench. And then you had Bobo off the bench. Still had Jahlil Okafor if need be. Even if you don't get rid of Solomon Hill, you still got Solomon Hill. This team is already infinitely better than it was last year, despite losing Drew Holiday. Infinitely better. And then when Zion gets back, they're even better. But they're probably going to miss the playoffs anyway. Fair enough. Okay, cool. We have no idea of knowing how the season would have played out for them in 2020, so I'm not going to go into 2020. I'm not going to touch 2020. But let's talk about the roster potentially for that offseason. Because let's just say they still fire, Alvin and bring in Stan Van Gundy. You now got Stan Van Gundy. See, we this year is fresh off our minds, so we're thinking about all the issues we had this year. One of the issues with this team was spacing. I'm sorry, you got Cam Reddish, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, DeAndre Hunter, possibly Tyler Hero, Bol potential, like spacing what? You can't get Steven Adams or Bledsoe now. You also don't get those Milwaukee picks, but fuck them. Do you really need them at that point? You don't even have to sign JJ Redick. You don't. But if you decided you want to still take JJ Redick and you didn't want to get Tyler Hero, that's fine. JJ comes off the bench. Your squad is infinitely better for Stan to come in and run his system, which means they're better as a team. Now, if you decided you want to upgrade your squad, you could trade some of those guys off the bench to get even better. Think about some of the free agents that was available last offseason. Think about it. You still get to see a year of Tyler Hero, DeAndre Hunter, Cam possibly, Bol. Maybe some team is high on some of these guys. Maybe you can make a deal to flip a guy too. Maybe they really don't want to fuck with Lonzo. We like Maurice Thybulle. They could have traded Lonzo. They could have threw in another guy to make the pot sweeter. This team should be infinitely better than what it is. There were so many other options. We might sit here and be like, hindsight is 2020, right? Fair enough. But at the same time, you had an opportunity to have one of the best, most entertaining, dynamic, athletic young squads in the league, and you blew it. Now, let me ask you a question. Let's say Griff picks up the phone and calls Atlanta and asks them, hey, we'll trade you Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker for DeAndre Hunter. Does Atlanta say yes or no? Probably going to say no. Probably just going to hang up and say, fuck you bitches. All right, cool. They call him again. All right, fine. What about Cam Reddish? I think they still say no. You traded away those guys essentially to get two guys that ain't anywhere near as good. Now, Jackson Hayes has the potential to be very good, and he could be better than we project, but I'm just being honest. Think about this for a minute. You could have potentially had a squad that had DeAndre Hunter, Bol, Tyler Hero, and all. I'm not gonna list everybody. Campaign, Lanford, Okoro, all these other guys. Like so many different guys, or Zochura, whatever his name is. So many other guys that I didn't list that you could have had for this team, and we didn't get them. We didn't get them. The following year, we got Kira. And every other pick we got, we traded. Even if you want to run point Zion, you would have had the pieces you needed. Don't have it. Would you rather have the team that have the guys I listed without Drew Holiday, of course? Or would you rather have what we have right now? But you can't even pick up the phone. Miami wouldn't trade Tyler Hero for James Harden or Ben Simmons. Ain't no way they finna take your phone call for them to kill Alexander Walker and Jackson Hayes. This is what we left on the table, people. This is what we left on the table. And people, you might seem like, well, why would they take Drew Holiday if this is Atlanta? Like, because you possibly could have gave Atlanta, you'd be like, all right, look, give us all your picks, we'll give you Drew. And Drew is infinitely better than anybody else they had at the two guard. They could have put him right next to Trey, he'd been just fine. 8, 10, you still keep the number 4, and you still got Zion. Even if you can't get Tyler Hero, which you could because he wasn't off the board yet. Think about this. Rui Hachimura went off the board immediately after Jackson Hayes. He was number 9. You could have had, and let's just say, okay, we got Zion, so we don't really need a major power forward. Maybe we need someone to back him up off the bench. You could take Cam Payne at the number 10. You could. Or maybe even number 17. Even if you don't want to take Rui Hachimura, fine. But you're going to need a shooter. You're going to need a shooter. You're going to need a shooting guard or someone that can flex. And you already got Lonzo Ball, his passing. This is Alvin Gentry's offense. You got Tyler Hero available. And you got Cam Reddish. Okay? You could have either of them next to Lonzo in the backcourt. I'm just saying. All of that was available to you. Was giving up Drew worth it because you only kept Drew another year? I'm just saying. Think about this long term. DeAndre Hunter. You're gonna need to get a shooting guard because you don't want to play Josh Hart there. So probably Cam Reddish or Tyler Hero. Maybe you take Cam Reddish. Maybe you say fuck Tyler Hero. Okay, fine. You don't get to get Rui Hachimura, but Bol Bol is still there. Maybe you take Bol Bol at number 17. I don't know. You need another point guard after Zoe. Maybe you take Maurice Topol. Or I didn't look at the second round because I really didn't care too much. I don't know how many people really came in the second round. It was like, oh, you could have took this person at point guard. But, I mean, matter of fact, hold on. THT from the Lakers, I think, was taken in the second round. And what's the guy's name? Man, off the bench for the Clippers. You could have had them. There you go. There you fucking go. Could have still got Jackson Hayes. I don't know, man. I think Jackson Hayes probably would have been available. If not at 13, he probably would have been available at 17. You still could have got Jackson Hayes. You could have still had one of those guys. I'm thinking Lonzo and Cam backcourt, really good defensively. If you want, and the thing is, versatility is the thing that I preach on this channel. You could have played small ball. DeAndre Hunter, Zion, B.I., Cam, and oh my God, that's disgusting. Damn, that's disgusting. I mean, shit. If you want to play Bobo, fuck it, Bobo, Zion. If you want to sit B.I. and want to play, Cam, maybe you think, okay, we don't have to sign B.I. anymore. You just put Cam at the 3 or the 2 instead. Josh Hart, Lonzo. Oh, we were worried about defense. You ain't got to worry about defense. You got 4 guys who are going to play defense at all time. The only person you got to worry about is Zion. He's the only one. And then you don't have the assets to fuck it up and go get Steven Adams. And you don't have the assets to fuck it up and go get Eric Bledsoe. Well, you do have the assets to fuck it up. But you don't have to fuck it up. If you wanted to, you could do a sign and trade. You could sign B.I., and we know what deal he got. You could have signed and traded B.I. and got even more shit. Like, I'm just... You think teams wouldn't have signed B.I. or traded to get B.I.? People complain like, oh, we could have got Miles Turner. Bam. Miles fucking Turner lands right in your fucking lap. If you wanted Victor Oladipo for this team, you could have got a Victor Oladipo. You know, you could have went to the Pacers and got pretty much whatever the fuck you needed for Brandon Ingram, because they would have took him. They would have took him. Even if you think Lonzo not gonna be good, you could have traded and got Brogdon. There's so many options for this team, but I'm just giving you what I think would have been optimal for this team given the situation, and this is what was left on the board. Now you could argue and say, well, there's no guarantee that Atlanta would have took Drew, blah blah blah. Okay, fine. So even if you don't get DeAndre Hunter, you still could have got Rui Hachimura. And he's really good. Could have easily have gotten him. And you could have got, even if you can't get Cam Reddish, maybe you get Tyler Hero. Either way, the team looks better than what it did. We didn't have shooters this year. We didn't have wing defenders. That fixes both problems. Both. You wouldn't have even need to sign JJ Redick, so you wouldn't have had to worry about, those issues. Most of these guys stay healthy. You don't have to have injury issues, and you didn't have them until late in the season. You lose Zion for a little bit, no problem. We still got Rui. We still got Tyler. We still got Zoe here, or B.I., or Cam Reddish, depending. Or depending on how the scenario, DeAndre Hunter. I mean, those guys could go out there and win you plenty of games. I'm just saying. It's better than, Najee Marshall, James Johnson, Steven Adams, and Jackson Hayes starting for you at the same time. It's way better than that bullshit. Griff, you fucked this up. You really did. You fucked this up. And you got all these draft picks, and I think they got 3 or 4 this year in the first round. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I believe they have the Lakers pick for sure. Even though that's probably going to be like around 2022-ish. Especially if they lose in the first round, which I'm predicting. I don't know how we trust him to draft shit when he drafted shit. That's all I got, man. If you're a Pelicans fan, after listening to this video and kind of outlining what could have happened or what you could have had, if you weren't pissed at this front office, you should be pissed today.